trees, or we can go around the mountain. If people will follow, we should do it.
Over here.
Because we could go to the... Well, we have 4 great places.
Oh.
Anyway. Okay. So let's see. And Jason, you should at least come on up here, though. Jason, come on up. Over here, lots of, we got our good balance, little good spacing.
6 feet, arm's length. Of course, some of us have short arms.
Okay, and do you have your wireless up here, Danielle? Okay, great. Let's see. Okay. All right, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 11:30 Corona briefing for the city of Albuquerque in central New Mexico. Today we're going to follow our standard format, and so I'm going to begin with a couple of pieces, updates from around central New Mexico that have been sent to our Joint Information Center. We'll talk a little bit about government continuity, city operations updates, and then today's deep dive is going to be around park security. This is in general initiative that was in place before Corona and all things related set in, but is actually now just as important, if not more important. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and we'll hear from guest speakers, also including this area's city councilor. We're very excited and honored to be joined by City Councilor Cynthia Barega, and so we'll hear from her in a little bit as well. Okay, so to begin, a couple of things. A reminder that the shortest line testing site continues to be Balloon Fiesta, Presbyterian site operating at Balloon Fiesta Park, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And in terms of other updates, yesterday we talked about our small business, our micro business support program. Want to let folks know we had over 300 applications in under 24 hours. The program was oversubscribed within 6 hours of us announcing it. So I think there's a couple of things out there. I'm very glad we set it up. We will work through the criteria to try and get those funds out as soon as we can. But we also want to encourage other entities, if they can, whether it's any other government entity or foundation, to help. There is clearly a huge demand for this right now. And I want to also encourage folks, if anyone's interested in donating, especially some of our larger businesses, to help out some of our smaller businesses or any philanthropic organizations, the fastest way is to just donate to the One Albuquerque Fund. You can do that at onealbuquerque.org, or you can just call 311 to get the details. But if you just earmark it for micro business enterprise, we will roll that out right away to one of these hundreds of businesses who applied for this small business support. Okay, some updates from the city. First, want to mention that at city buildings, we are, again, closed except for essential services and emergency childcare. That's in general where city facilities are at. We are going to follow CDC protocol and start screening folks as they do come to work. So even if you're an essential service, we're going to just have that same check your temperature with the touchless temperature gauge and ask you a few questions. We're going to begin doing that starting Wednesday at all facilities. That it does include, of course, City Hall. Now we know those facilities are all operating with very few employees anyway, but we do think it's important to institute this just as an additional health precaution. And again, this matches what we're already doing at our Emergency Operations Center and what now I believe is being recommended nationally. Okay, our president mentioned to our governor that he is committed to a U.S. Army field hospital at the request of our governor, which of course the city also supported that request as well. I have been getting a lot of questions on this. I just want to mention that was a conversation that was recorded, but it was a conversation between governors and the president. We have received no formal notification. We're looking forward to it. We're reaching out formally. Obviously, if that's going to take place at a private facility, such as the old Loveless Hospital on Gibson, the city would be involved with respect to permitting traffic, environmental health, and so forth, but to a lesser degree than if it's going to be at a city facility, such as the Convention Center, the Balloon Fiesta, in which case we would be the primary landlord, if you will. And so we are awaiting any formal notification of any type from the Army at this point. And again, are reaching out today to follow up on that. And we very much look forward to that formal notification in addition to that informal conversation that was reported on earlier. Okay, for more information on what is happening at the city, of course, you can always check cabq.gov. Now, I want to begin by touching on a few things with respect to park security, and then we're going to hand it over to our city councilor and then to Dave Simon, our director of Parks and Rec. That parks and open space have been one of the only outlets for fresh air and exercise other than the sidewalk in our streets in the city. We want to continue to do that as long as we can. This is an excellent way for the city to step up, but we have to do it in cooperation with everyone, maintaining that 6 feet apart distance, keeping your space, staying off the playgrounds. And also, when you go to these facilities, enjoy them, get your exercise, and then go home so we can reduce the demand. We are starting to see, no surprise, heavy demand on these facilities, and we just want to help keep them open. And so we can all play our part doing that by keeping our distance and, again, going to the facilities, using them, and then going back home. So also want to, again, remind folks, too, that the playgrounds are all closed. Now, we have a lot of facilities that we're going to talk about, but they're also undergoing some improvements. We're going to try and keep doing this. So we have $1.7 million in physical improvements in law enforcement efforts to our parks and rec properties. Sometimes these are in the form of enhanced lighting, and we're going to talk about some of those here. Sometimes these are in the form of our new cameras. These are APD run, but some of them are being deployed at parks. And these are extremely effective at deterring crime of all kinds. And we just got a bunch new in that we're talking about. Want to thank our legislators. They help pay for a lot of these. And so legislators all around, we really appreciate you investing in these cameras. These cameras are coming in both from last year's legislative appropriations and this year's, as well as city council appropriations. So it's been a real team effort to invest in these pop-up cameras. Now, our law enforcement team is also working in that one Albuquerque spirit. So we have, again, a dedicated open space unit. We also have our field unit, and our deputy chief of police, who's in charge of field operations, Chief Medina, is here for questions on that. But our field team is working on how they can actually do additional patrols and tactical plans at our parks. And also we're utilizing our DMD security team. So Jason Downing is here, who is our deputy chief under our DMD security. That's like city security, facility security operations. They're also doing enhanced work out at our parks. So again, this hopefully is putting our taxpayer money to good use, both to reduce crime, but also wear and tear on our parks. And again, is actually now hitting the field, if you will, from investments and planning that we've done over the last year. Now we are here for everyone's information at Ventana Ranch. And so this neighborhood way out on the west side, big neighborhood that a huge chunk of our city uses and lives in. This is also the home of West Side Summerfest, which hopefully will happen. We'll see at the end of the summer. But we're making some specific investments here in Councilor Barega's district. So I want to hand it over to her to talk about those. West Side City Councilor Cynthia Barega.
Thank you.
Councilor.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being in District 5 this morning. Thank you to the mayor for the work that he has done in leading our city through this difficult time. We will get through it. And I want to thank our city staff. They've all been so amazing. And that includes APD, fire, solid waste, IT. I mean, the list goes on for the people that have this dedication. We want to keep everyone in our community safe through this COVID time. I do see an end in sight. It's not going to be easy, but we want to keep all of our citizens safe and healthy. I think both of the city mayor's website and the city council website have numbers that will help direct you in terms of any needs that you have. This week I had a situation where there was an 88-year-old woman living in an apartment by herself in a wheelchair. And within a day's time of it being reported to us, we were able to secure some home meals for her. So Senior Affairs, they are stepping up. Everyone is just stepping up, and it's really important. We're standing here with the mayor and the staff on the in Ventana Ranch Park, which is the northernmost edge of the city and the western edge of the city. This morning I received an email from our Northwest Area Command saying that their hours are being reduced for filing a claim or picking up a report, a crime report. So check our websites. They're really important in terms of where we're going and how we're going to get through this together as a community. I also want to thank our legislators for the money that they provided us, and especially want to thank the mayor for seeing through and looking into the future, because we are very concerned about our businesses. The business grant fund, as he mentioned, is, people are really using that, and we want to support our businesses wherever we can. Our restaurants, takeout food, whatever you can do to help them. It's really important. The mayor was asking me about my favorite restaurant. There's one down the street. I'm not going to mention any names, but we need to step up and support our businesses through this time, because our gross receipts depend on it for the future of our budget. And that budget is coming up also. So thank you all for being in my district. Thank you to Open Space as well, and Dave Simon and his staff. If people need anything, please contact my office and we will be happy to help. Thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you so much, Counselor. And now for some more information on all things Parks and Rec and so forth, our Director of Parks and Rec, Dave Simon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Ventana Ranch Park. This park is obviously a jewel in our city's system of parks, and certainly one of the most useful and beneficial parks we have on the west side. I want to just thank the mayor for reiterating the importance of following our social distancing and hygiene protocols when the public is out visiting our parks, trails, and open space. We are experiencing heavy use in these places, and it is proving and re-emphasizing just how important and valuable our parks, trails, and open space system is in our city. If we work together, we can continue to absorb and accommodate public use in these places, provided people follow the requirements. And in addition to the social distancing and mass gathering requirements, I'll just emphasize too that if a cherished pet is a member of your family and you do bring your pet to a park or open space area, we appreciate you picking up after your pet. And also, you can help us out by practicing the pack it in, pack it out approach to any trash you may generate while you're at a park and open space area. But if we work together, we can keep the parks, trails, and open space areas open, continuing to provide us mental, physical, and spiritual rejuvenation and recreation during this difficult time. Again, we're here at Ventana Ranch Park. 2 years ago, this park was provided us with unfortunately a classic example of why investing in safety and security in our parks is so important. During the summer of 2018, this park was hit by criminals 2 times. They disabled the entire electrical system in the park, taking down the lighting over the tennis courts and over these fantastic athletic fields, and pretty much rendering the park unavailable to the general public. This kind of senseless, disrespectful crime and vandalism in our parks is something we won't tolerate, but we can take steps to protect the parks and the public's investment in these spectacular facilities, and that is what we have been doing with the leadership of the mayor and the support of the city council. The damage that was done to this park cost almost $100,000 to repair. But with the support of the city councilor and Councilor Barega in particular, we've made some important security investments in Ventana Ranch Park that should limit the future potential for vandalism and protect the taxpayers' assets. In particular, we've done 3 things. First of all, we've installed an automated gate at the front entrance of this park. This means that the park's hours of opening and closing can be enforced. And this gate will really help protect the park from unauthorized vehicular access when the park is and should be closed. Secondly, we've armored and protected the electrical system at this park. And there are 3 particular spots in the park where we have electrical panels and transformers or components of the electrical system, and we've protected those with special measures to make it difficult, if not impossible, to impact the wiring and electrical systems at the park. Some of those locations are scattered around the park, and you can see one up against the tennis courts. Third, we are improving the security at the restroom building at the park, rekeying the restrooms which have been damaged by vandalism in the past. So the cumulative total of impacts to this park has been considerable from crime and vandalism, but our investments are going to really deter crime, increase the safety and security of the park, and save taxpayer funds. This is a great example of the more than $1.7 million in this year's city budget that City Parks and Recreation is investing to make parks safer and more secure. These investments will be made to improve public safety and security at city parks, pools, recreation facilities, and open space. And the funding is primarily being used to install physical security elements, support law enforcement efforts, and protect city assets. Of the $1.7 million, approximately $1.45 million is one-time money that's being invested in physical projects and will not require recurring funding. In total, 84 city parks and other parks and rec facilities around Albuquerque have been prioritized for safety and physical security improvements. And these have included improvements in projects such as new lighting, fencing, and gates. Examples of some of these physical improvements beyond the Ventana Ranch Park projects include more than $525,000 invested in new lights at 35 city parks, nearly $375,000 invested in new gates and fences to control access to parks and rec facilities, $50,000 to install intrusion alarms at all city pools, over $60,000 invested in new trail lighting and security to improve the safety on our major trail systems such as the North Diversion Channel Trail, and over $40,000 in investments at open space trailheads and parking areas. Among those investments, we have purchased additional camera trailer units, as the mayor described. And these sort of RoboCop units are among the most effective ways we can make parks safer. And with the addition of the trailers acquired through this safety and security funding, City Parks and Recreation will now have a fleet of 9 camera trailers that we work with APD to deploy around the city. That means that every portion of the city will have a trailer to deploy, and every city council district will have at least one trailer that we can move around to hotspots. And these are very effective tools. In addition to the physical improvements and the tools for safety and security, Parks and Rec is partnering with the Albuquerque Police Department and with the Metro Security Division of the DMD to increase law enforcement efforts at Parks and Rec facilities. And these efforts have included specialized tactical operations by APD and additional patrols in parks in each of APD's area commands. And the Metro Security Division of DMD has increased patrols at some city parks, and they've launched a new program to close gates at selected city parks at night. Again, this will help keep these parks safe and secure overnight and deter crime and unwanted behavior in the parks. Finally, City Parks and Rec has invested over $400,000 to reinforce protection of city assets, such as our maintenance yards and overnight areas where we store vehicles and equipments. And these have unfortunately been too often the victims of theft and vandalism in recent years. And these investments will help avert loss and reduce the wasteful expenditures of taxpayer dollars to repair and replace stolen and damaged equipment. Instead, we can invest more funds to improve the parks and make them even better for our citizens. So all told, about 80% of the $1.7 million provided by the City Council in this year's budget has been used for physical safety, security projects, and uniformed law enforcement presence in the parks. And about 20% of the money has been used to better protect city assets owned by the taxpayers. In total and in sum, I would just say that with the mayor's leadership, the support of the City Council, and the protection provided by our partners at DMD and APD, this initiative represents major investments to increase park safety and security across our city. Thank you very much, and I believe we'll take some questions.
Okay, a few items before we wrap up. Just want to mention, too, that everything that Director Simon mentioned, there are in total 84 parks. Did I get that right? So our city has an extensive park system in addition to open space, but 84 parks, and a range of these efforts and initiatives are going to be happening all across that park system. Okay, a couple of items. Number one, ways people can help. Director Simon mentioned this too, but parks and open spaces, the best thing you can do is leave only your footprints. So we obviously are continuing trash pickup and so forth, but these are being so heavily used right now that the more you can just take out on your own, the better for everyone. Our myth-busting item today is about social distancing outdoors. It all still matters, whether you're outdoors or not, meaning that 6 feet is the best way to go. Cough in your shoulder, wash your hands before and after. So really, you should conduct yourself the same outdoors as you would indoors. And lastly, takeout yesterday was Baka Boys. And all right, with that, we will take your questions. So those in person first, yes.
First things first, what are the do's and don'ts? You said like the myth-busting thing about going outside. Like we see some people throwing a football or playing tennis. Are those things that we are okay with, or are we trying to discourage people from doing those things?
So let me take a shot at it, and then Dave Simon, you might fill in some blanks. Right now, if a city facility is open, like if the gates to the tennis courts are open, that means you can use them. But what you've got to do is the same distancing and hygiene. So wash your hands before, stay 6 feet apart, which, hopefully in tennis is easy, and then wash your hands after. And the same thing where, any organized game is not a good idea, and we're absolutely discouraging that. But if you want to do something like shoot the basketball, same thing. Wash your hands before, wash the ball if you can, and then wash your hands after, and don't touch your face in between. And again, no games because you're too close. So again, with the appropriate precautions, we think you can enjoy facilities and ball sports, but not organized games in any fashion. Dave, other do's and don'ts? Best to hear it from the guy with the badge.
They've got the real badges. Thank you, Mayor. Again, I just want to remind the public that the playgrounds in city parks are closed. The general areas are open, and while we're not encouraging the public to come out, the stay-at-home orders are really the order of the day. If people are going to come to parks to recreate or to get a little sunshine and fresh air, That's what they're there for, but please don't linger in the parks. But I think the mayor covered it well. Social distancing is easy to do outside. Personally, I have witnessed over the last 3 or 4 days outstanding compliance by our citizens in social distancing in the parks and open space areas. So I would just say, way to go, Albuquerque. Keep it up. I have not seen a single party size larger than 5 in an open space area the entire weekend, and it's easy to maintain social distancing on trails. We just want to encourage the public to maintain their focus and vigilance on this, and if we do that and work together, the parks, open space, and trail system can provide these opportunities and benefits to us.
And then a quick follow-up one. You mentioned these were to really deter crime. Will these be used to deter or check in on social distancing? You mentioned they might go in parks, but are these units really focused on crime?
These are really focused on crime. And so, to the extent we might check them if we hear that there's, some after hours party at the park, of course, and that would be not appropriate under a number of circumstances, especially now. So we'll use them as needed, but these are really for actual crime. And, I think just to reiterate, from an enforcement perspective, we're really focusing on illegal mass gatherings or other illegal activity being conducted, whether it's drugs and so forth. That's really what we're enforcing. Other than that, as directors said, people have been actually really, really respectful. And I just want to add, it's okay to say hi to each other. I mean, it's funny. People see each other at parks and they kind of look, it's like, hey, good morning, good afternoon. That's okay. But as Dave Simon mentioned too, do your thing and go back home. I think that's really important. But folks have been doing that. And so far, we've been working as one Albuquerque, both to enjoy our outdoor space, but also to respect what's happening with public health. Others in person.
If no one else does. What, if any, of the public health emergency powers have you used, and how has that helped? Or has any public health emergency powers been used?
So we have exercised 2 emergency public health actions at the city. One yesterday was used to free up these small business funds. And again, that's because council wrote in sort of how to do this. So the good news is, because of their foresight and decision making, they enabled what we did yesterday, which was just move a line item from one category to another. But again, to get out that small business assistance. So that was one way. We also are using it to allow digital signatures. Again, another item that we had to use our emergency powers to do. And going back to our original declaration, we are at least allowed to, if we need to, enforce stay home and mass gathering situations, and also the stay-at-home order for non-essential businesses and employees. So we've actually mirrored the state. That's the good news. So we've been in alignment, but we've done it in a way that the city is operating under our own ordinances and authority, as well as those given to us by the state. And it helps keep everything consistent. The last thing is, which is the most important in some ways, applying for federal funds and state funds. We're using all our emergency authorities to track and apply for all of that going forward.
We have one on Zoom. From the Journal, you mentioned that parks will remain open with the public's assistance. Have you discussed the potential of closing them altogether, and what would precipitate that? Can you just repeat the question?
Yes. I feel like I'm being interviewed by my own team. That was good job. So the question is, what is in the works in terms of if we do need to close parks and so forth. What was the second part?
Like, what would cause that?
Oh, yeah, and what would precipitate that? Well, we are now, from an emergency management perspective, planning for a number of scenarios. And the scenarios that we're looking at is, if things get a lot worse in Albuquerque with respect that is different to the rest of the state. And so we are thinking through both geographic enforcements. So, for example, if a particular park or something is just totally overused and it's impossible to control, we will have to close it. But we're trying to look at where can we encourage people to go in terms of other areas to spread everyone out. And so stay tuned for more on that probably this weekend. So we're looking at a number of different options. And we would also probably start by one-off closures as opposed to closing the whole system. So that's the way we're looking at it at this point.
One other from Zoom, from Care
So the question is really around APD and what's the crime situation right now, and what's happening with respect to public safety. So I'll bring up our DC. It's good that he's joined with us today to give an update on that. We'll remind folks too, we're going to try and have a more formal public safety update at least once a week as part of these briefings. I think the last one that we did was Saturday. And so we'll be having more of a deep dive, I'm sure, at one upcoming again before next Saturday. But Chief, if you have anything top of mind that's different, feel free to chime in.
Hello everybody. The Albuquerque Police Department is seeing some changes in the way we do business and the amount of calls for service. We're still getting about the same amount, maybe slightly lower levels of calls for service, but one of the differences is how we're responding to them. We've really expanded our telephone report unit capabilities. We've also expanded our telephone use by officers to call individuals to get police reports done when it has to be done by a sworn officer. And we're also seeing that there are some crimes that are increasing that you could guess with businesses closed. We're slowly seeing an increase in possibly commercial burglaries, but we're making adjustments to our resources. Just yesterday, myself and the Chief of Investigations spoke about how we could get some resources out there through our impact teams to look at these increase in commercial burglaries and see if we could get some people into custody. We're seeing other crimes such as residential burglaries. They seem to be decreasing, which is obvious with everybody at home. You'd see that. So we're seeing slight fluctuations, but we're not seeing anything where we're seeing mass peaks in any types of crime. A lot of individuals were worried that we could see an increase in domestic violence. We're yet to see that, which is a good thing, and we hope that that trend continues in the future. So we're monitoring our crime rates very closely. Every day we get a report on the calls for service holding. I really like the changes that we've made, and quite frankly, a lot of these changes will probably still stay in place after coronavirus for the simple reason that it's helping us manage our calls for service better than we've been able to manage in the past, and getting out to the calls that need an officer much more rapidly. So we continue to monitor everything every day. We meet about this, we talk about it, and as soon as we see an issue, we get resources out there to address them. One of the things I wanted to talk about, though, is like Director Simon spoke about earlier, the hours at the substations have been reduced from 10 till 3, or I think as the city councilor that mentioned it earlier, have been reduced from 10 to 3. Everything that you do at the substation can honestly be done for the most part online or over the telephone. We've put that information out. I'll see to it that we put that information out again today. We're asking the public to stay home, utilize online methods or telephone calls to get the police reports that you need, and we'll get them out to you. Anything we can do to reduce people-to-people contact is going to help us as a community, and we're really hoping that the public can use these other measures in place to get some of the information or reports that they need so that they don't have to be out in the community endangering themselves or endangering some of our civilian personnel with the possibility of catching the coronavirus. So continue to be patient and work with us. I'd like to thank the residents of the city of Albuquerque for all that they've done. We feel very supported. We had individuals who have purchased boxed meals for our officers. I've had more text messages in the last week than the last 25 years, just checking up on us and making sure that we're doing okay, which is a great thing to come from the community at this time. So just want to thank the community for all their support and their understanding during this time. Thank you.
Chief Medina, we have one more question from the Albuquerque Journal around arresting people on conditions of release or probation violations. Have you shifted any policies to that end during the public health emergency?
We're asking our officers to make sure that the arrests that we make are absolutely necessary. For example, with guard duty, we're only guarding individuals at hospitals that have a violent felony, and we're trying not to arrest other individuals. We'll just refile the warrant in those cases. And as this continues to go forward and increase the amount of cases, we will make adjustments as necessary. One of the things that we did do is we have officers paired up with a consistent pair so we don't get a whole squad sick. So we're still out there. We're still enforcing crime law. We're still taking individuals to jail. And when an individual has a warrant, the officer is using their discretion to see if it's absolutely necessary that they should go to jail or should the warrant be refiled. But right now, we're really pushing that we stay increasing violations and that we still take individuals into custody when we have to. Thank you.
Question for the mayor, if you could let us know how these cameras work a little bit.
Yeah, so these cameras, folks have seen some of these. These go right to our real-time crime center. And so that real-time crime center has them on monitors up all over the city. And there's a couple of different ways too that those interface with our field officers. But literally there's somebody watching in the real-time crime center when these are up and running. And so they're one of our few actual real-time video monitoring programs that we have in place. And of course, they're mobile. So we move them around based on supply and demand of crime. All right, any other questions?
We have one more from the journal. Are micro business loans first come, first served, or who determines which applicants get them?
So the question is, are the micro business loans first come, first serve, or who determines who gets them? Our small business office determines who gets them, and they actually go through applications. So they're not first come, first serve. They're scored based on the criteria that we outlined before. And I'm sure because there's so many that have applied, if there's enough that are qualified, then the last category will be first come, first serve. But first they're screened based on those initial criteria. Okay, all right, we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.